Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. I hope that you're all doing well. Welcome to our 7-day podcast, Pre Ramadan edition. So, for today, we have our guest speaker, Brother Zubair, also goes by Coach Zubair. So, a bit about him is Coach Zubair is a strategist, breakthrough coach, and a trainer at Muslim Mastery. He's on a personal mission of helping develop stronger believers in reference to the hadith on that subject. He has been doing that since 2008 and is blessed to have benefited from a diverse range of experience working with Islamic scholars, community leaders, technology inventors, coaches, and entrepreneurs in various capacities, which include teaching Quranic Arabic, inviting non-Muslims to Islam, coaching new Muslims, conducting dawah and new Muslim mentor trainings in various countries, leading dawah and new Muslim coaches team, co- 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 conducting worship and masterminds around living life of excellence as a strong believer, and providing personal development and marriage mastery coaching. He has served with the organizations including IOU, IERA, Al Huda Institute, ICNA, Abu Huraira Center, and Islam Wise. So let's all welcome Brother Zubair, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it. How are you doing?
Alhamdulillah, how are you doing?
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah.
How is your Ramadan preparations going so far?
Oh, subhanallah. I wouldn't say it's great, but inshallah, hope to get there, hope to make it by the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah help us all reach it and complete it with the tawfiq and success.
Ameen. Alright, so let's begin, inshallah. So to start us off, as we're all looking forward to the month of the Quran, so as the month of the Quran approaches, some of us may have been preparing for this month by reciting or memorizing the Quran frequently, or for some it might be the first Ramadan. What is the significance of reciting Quran, especially in this month?
All right, mashallah. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulullah. So let's step back. I think when you said like two things, right? What is the significance of reciting Quran in this month? And then at the same time, the question is, what is the significance of this month, right? So I was thinking about this, and we were also discussing this at a webinar for Muslim Mastery. Like, well, what comes to your mind when you think about Ramadan? And just comparing it with many different seasons that you see happening around us, I think you can classify people into three categories. And an easier way to understand that would be to think about, what do you think about Boxing Week, right? What do you think about the Cyber Monday or the quote unquote Black Friday, right? And I think that, or even like if you go into sports analogy, what do you think about Super Bowl, or what do you think about, Cricket World Cup, or soccer FIFA World Cup, right? So I think there are three types of people. First are the people who will be thinking about the festivities, the socialization aspects of it, all the fun, and that's what they're looking forward to. And then there's second type of people who are the middle tier, and they will be thinking about, hey, you know what? I'm gonna get some great deals. So it's not just socialization. Yes, the socialization will be there, the fun will be there, but I want to look at the products or services I want to buy or things I want to buy, and I want to have a bargain during those time. And they're actually going to go and take advantage of that during those, whether it be sports season or Boxing Week or whatever, right? Another analogy you can throw in as well is, let's say you're working at a corporation or you have an exam coming up or what have you, and there's a special project going on, and you know that there's going to be special teams selected to deliver on a special project. What are you going to do? Some people would be like, okay, well, it's going to be a special season. The company is going to order coffee and snacks and dinner and meals and what have you. I'm just going to take advantage of that. And then this middle tier is like, okay, well, there are opportunities to make more money, make more friends, and I'm just going to take advantage of that. The third type of people are the one who are going to really take advantage of this. So they are the people, for example, if it's sports season, then you have these athletes that are training for that, right? They want to compete in that Super Bowl, they want to compete in that Cricket World Cup or what have you, and they really want to become a better version of themselves. So they'll say, you know what, I'm just going to train that 1 month or a few weeks, and I'm going to go on a training camp or what have you. I'll become really strong so that not only I'll be successful in that special season, but when I come out of it, I will be stronger. Yes, I won't be training as hard as during that special time, but I will come out of it as a strong person, right? And I'll have a better life. Or from a corporation example, it would be like, hey, I'll get a promotion, I'll get a big bonus. So after that special project is delivered, I will have a different title. I will have a promotion, I will have a different title that I will enjoy for the rest of my career. So I think the same thing applies for Ramadan. Either you can think about the socialization, the fun, the food, the dinner parties, the iftar parties, and so on and so forth. Or you say, hey, you know what? Allah is giving us massive deals. So one prayer, I can take this advantage that I want to do actions that will give me this power wash and clean me off my sins, get me closer to Jannah, get me forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, get me, refuge from hellfire. And those middle tier, the second tier, obviously is a great place to be in as well, because now you're taking advantage of the massive, huge bonus sales from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The third type of people are like, you know what, I'm going to work hard on myself, I'm going to challenge myself, I'm going to, pray extra, I'm going to do extra voluntary things and what have you, so that when I come out of it, I've become a better person. I've perhaps memorized some Quran, I've understood some Quran, I have developed some of these habits that I'll be able to carry on. Does that make sense?
Yep. And it also kind of gives us an idea as to like what is it that I should prepare for? Like how should I even prepare? Which goes on to the next question: what is our mind? What should our mindset be? Because we're all going, like how you mentioned about going to star parties, and then you have like all of these events that come up. So it's like how do you like manage like doing all of that plus doing ibadat plus doing like a lot of other things as well too?
Right, exactly. So I think, yes, so as I was saying, like first thing is, so you need to figure out like what do you want? Like what is success to you individually, right? And which tier you want it to be, right? You just want to be to take advantage of the deals or take advantage of the socialization. And once you have those top priority, right? And I think it also kind of ties into the concept of focus, right? Even if they say that, look, if you want to be successful in something, you have to be really focused. And so that means that you need to know that this is my priority number one, this is my priority number two, and this is my priority number three. That means now you can make those decisions, as you were saying, that while you have to juggle into those things. So having said that, now we could jump into the topic of Quran, if you will, or we can just even take a look at to your second question first, and then come back to the Quran. And that's like so we have developed like a system of 10 habits that people can think about it. If you want, we can talk about those things, and then we can dive in as you like, and while making
For
sure that
sure.
we come back to the Quran topic, right? That's the main thing.
100%.
So I think once you have that mindset, so first and foremost for me is like, hey, you know what, let's start with your three big dreams. Okay, so you want to think about your dreams, right? Because most of us are going to be more concerned about our dunya than the akhirah, and let's take advantage of that, right? So if you're more concerned about your dunya, let's figure out the top three dreams, right? Whether it be marriage, whether it be business, whether it be career, whether it be clarity on what do I want to do with my life, whatever it is, think about those top three things. Now you really want to have those things. How would it be if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala were to really support you in getting those things, right? So another way of thinking about it is, look, you have a project that you want to do, right? Now, let's say you have this project of 7-day Ramadan preparation. So I'm sure there's like not just you and me and other speakers, there's a lot of people behind the scenes. So now you want to work with a team. Okay, so you want to recruit a team for you. But imagine if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala were to support you in your project. So if you have those three major dreams or three major du'as, what you can then do is that you want to take advantage of all the opportunities that you have in Ramadan, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a promise of accepting your du'as. Whether it be the iftar time, the suhoor time, the tahajjud, the salah, the time between adhan and the iqamah. You don't want to miss out on that. These 5 asks, you want to be like consistently asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for those things. So that's step number 1. Capture your exciting dreams and make sure that you take advantage of these 29 or 30 days and you keep consistently asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for that. Okay. The second thing is, and feel free to interrupt me if I'm talking too much, right? I get really excited about this. The second thing is, you want to be, so when you're opening your computer, right? I don't know how many tabs you've got open, right? But the more tabs you open, it slows down, right? So your computer will be slowed and you wouldn't be able to open another tab or, what have you. So it becomes slow. Or the phone, same thing. With lots of apps, it becomes slow. So what you want to do is you want to become light and nimble spiritually. And how you do that is, as the ulama say, that before Ramadan, engage in more istighfar. So you want to reset, you want to lighten the burden of your sins, so that when you're entering Ramadan, you're spiritually lighter, and that will give you the more tawfiq to do more good deeds. Any comments on those 2 tips before I tell you about more?
I would think that when it comes to doing istighfar, so sometimes the question becomes like, how much istighfar should I be doing? How on like, as I'm doing a lot of my stuff, I'm already doing so much istighfar. but how much more, like how far can I take istighfar? Like
Great.
what other actions should I be doing instead of just saying astaghfirullah like 1,000 times for instance or 2,000 times? Like what goes into doing istighfar?
That's a great point. Actually, so I would say that even more than focusing on the quantity, focusing more on the quality, right? So actually mean it, right? And this is really important. That when we are engaging with Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, we should mean it, right? And then now, I mean, today, how many times people talk about this? Say, hey, you know what? You're talking to someone, look at them, right? Don't be looking at your phone and like, yeah, it's going good, and you're looking at your phone, right? And you're multitasking and talking to people. That's why they say, hey, you know what? Turn your camera on so you can actually see where they're actually focused on. So I think that's one of the most important things, to actually have that quality of stuff out. And then again, like, just being conscious of it, right? So now it's much easier. You could be actually, doing it while you're driving your car, what have you, while you're walking, you're waiting for something. So the more you do, again, as they say, like, you have this notion of 10,000 steps, right? You want to burn your calorie, you want to burn fast, you want to take 10,000 steps. So, well, maybe we can aim for 10,000 stuff out as well, right? While meaning it. If not that, then at least
True.
100 or so on and so forth, right? So, but again, the more you do it, the inshallah, the lighter you will be. And it doesn't have to be, as you say, you can have a variety of things, right? So you can have a varieties of du'as around istighfar, right? Astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah al-azim. You can do the Sayyid al-Istighfar, the longer version of it. You can do La ilaha illa anta subhanaka inni kuntu min al-zalimin. There's so many different varieties of it. But ideally, you want to know what you're saying as well, so it's more meaningful to you, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Yeah. So continuing on, I would say, like, the next would be knowledge, right? Gain knowledge of what is more valuable, right? Just same thing. What do you do when it comes to boxing week or Cyber Monday? You want to find out the deals that are out there, right? What's the most important deal? So either you know what you want, or you have $1,000 and you want to get the maximum benefit of those $1,000. So you want to have knowledge. Similarly, if you want to be successful in religion, you want to acquire knowledge. What are the fadail of Ramadan? Within Ramadan, what are more special times? What are the virtues of different types of ibadah, right? And how to do those ibadah, those acts of worship in the manner of sunnah. So the more knowledgeable you are, the more efficient you can be. So you might be spending just 1 hour, but because you have the knowledge, you know the sunnah, you may be getting way more reward than someone else who doesn't know what they're doing. Okay.
Right. Because every action is also based on intention.
Absolutely.
So that goes into mindset too.
Exactly. Why you're doing this that's why we first of all started with that mindset. Like, what's the goal? There's something connected to knowledge, is the 80-20 rule. And this is really important, right? So you want to, the 80-20 rule, Rida?
No, this is the first time hearing of the 80-20 rule.
Wow. Okay.
I probably heard about it. I probably heard about it before, but.
All right. So basically, it says that the 20% of you have, for every action, you have 20% of effort that gives you the 80% of the result, and the rest is then icing on the cake. So that's like for pretty much anything, right? So when it comes to effort, even when it comes to donors, they say like you have 20% of your donors who give you the 80% of your donation. I mean, obviously, as they say that, most of the stats are just made up on the fly, including this one, right? But you have this 80-20 rule. So the way it works is that from our perspective is that, look, not every act of ibadah is equal in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what's most important is the faraid, right? So your siyam, protecting your sawm, your fasting is really, really important. Your 5 daily prayers is obviously even more important than the sawm. Now, especially for men, praying in the masjid is way more important than anything else. But what you see is that when people are prioritizing their Ramadan, they may prioritize, for example, praying Taraweeh and praying and chilling, after Taraweeh or after Iftar, then praying Isha and Fajr in the masjid, right? Even if you were to just fix on those two things, you cannot catch up with other voluntary actions. So think about it, like what are you committing to? And what acts of worship are you committing to? Other examples would be, serving your parents and being nice and kind to them would be way more valuable than, volunteering at the masjid or volunteering at community or what have you. So again, just with that knowledge, make sure that you're not just going after what you like to do or what you find popular among your friends, but you're actually also optimizing based on that, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prioritizes. Okay, now the next tip actually is related to what we were talking about, which is the main topic of the days, is the connection with Quran. And we have, if you think about it, like how does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala introduces the month of Ramadan in Quran?
So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, going over the ayahs, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says like this is the month of, the Ramadan in which, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made Eid for us.
Mhm.
And the question becomes, how is Eid for us? Because, when we have people telling us like, oh, you can't eat for like from like dawn to like sunset and no water, and you have all of these comments. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala still wants Eid for us during this month in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us the opportunity to turn back to Him, especially now that we know that Shaitan will be locked up during this month.
Okay. All right. So that wasn't the answer I was looking for, but okay. But that's actually a very good point that you raised. So let me park that for a second, and actually let's pick up on that, and then I'll go back into how Allah Subhanahu wa Taala introduces the month of Quran, a month of Ramadan. So this is actually a very important point, especially from a new Muslim perspective and non-Muslims perspective as well. Look, we can think of it as hardship, or you can think of it as development. That's why I gave the initial examples of an athlete. I gave the initial examples of, a special project at work, or, what would be considered like a bonus project at university or college, right? These are for bonus marks. If you want to excel, you can do this bonus question or this bonus assignment, write this bonus paper, and then, you can excel. So think about it. Like, what is the difference between you and I and a regular Muslim and, let's say, Khabib or any other athlete out there? Right? They train so hard because they are aiming for the big games, right? They're playing with the big players, they're playing in the World Cups and so on and so forth. Now, obviously, most of us cannot do that. But in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, each one of us had the opportunity to play in major leagues. Right? Now, Allah is giving you that opportunity that you, I, any person, any, Zaid, Amr, Bakr, Fatima, Aisha, anyone can play in the major leagues. Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving you that World Cup option that yes, you can actually go and win the World Cup of Ramadan, win the World Cup of Laylatul Qadr. But so you have a really huge prize and you have some effort that you need to put in. So Allah is giving you that big prize, but then what's the cost is for you to say, look, I am beyond my desires. And that's how most of the people live, right? Okay, I'm waking up. What do I need to do? Well, first of all, I don't feel like waking up. I'm going to snooze my phone. I'm going to sleep in. But successful people, even non-religious successful people, they are determined they will wake up at 5 o'clock. Now, Allah is giving you additional benefit, additional blessing to wake up before sunrise and what have you, so that you start your day earlier. You're not just following your own desires. Okay, well, I'm awake now. What do I need to do? Well, I'm going to have coffee or cereals or Fruit Loops or whatever. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is now teaching you that no, you can actually say no to yourself. Yes, your body might desire coffee, your body might desire Fruit Loops, your body might desire cereals or protein bar, what have you, but no, you can actually say no to yourself and you can become stronger than what you think that you are. And now, obviously, even beyond that, we have a lot of data about whole intermittent fasting and the benefits of that and the ketogenic diets and, all that sort of stuff. But now this is all coming from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We don't even have to, worry about the science because it's backed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the designer of this body. So Allah is giving you this opportunity. He's making it compulsory on us with a huge, massive reward for 1 month in the year so that we can train ourselves and we can go beyond our materialistic desires. So coming back to the original point of how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala introduces the month, Allah says, شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن. So the month is actually introduced by the book, which is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, when you think about the books, right? When you think about, I don't know, do you read books?
Yeah, I do read books.
All right. So when you buy a book, what do you look at? Reviews, bestseller, author.
Look at the author. That's like number one. Because I read a book depending on who the author is and what is the book about.
Exactly. And most people would actually start with the author, even when it comes to events and speakers, right? I mean, the events that get sold out are based on the speaker that's coming, right? Now think about this: who is the author or who is the speaker? Who's of Quran, right? That's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that's the first and foremost thing for us to think about. That Well, and that goes back to actually knowing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He is the Rabbul Alameen, right? So we have a lot of, we can go into a lot of different directions here. So the point is like, who is Allah to you, right? How do we know Allah? What kind of respect do we have for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And one of the projects that we are doing, and this is how we plug in my projects, is Quranic transformation.
Alhamdulillah.
So Quranic transformation is conversation with different speakers about Quran. And today we were actually covering Surah Nuh. I had a recording with Sheikh Abdul Rahim McCarthy. And, in Surah Nuh, Nuh alayhi salam is actually telling his people about the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we were discussing that. And the point is that, look, when it comes to different things, when it comes to Apple, Google, Tesla, and what have you, we are so admired and so amazed by their design and their creation and their products and their services and what have you. But when it comes to the design of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we take it for granted. So we might be amazed with, hey, Apple is releasing a new phone with 2 cameras or 3 cameras with 6 megapixel and 12 megapixel. But what about these 2 eyes that all of us are born with built-in facial recognition software, right? And the ability to have the smell. I mean, iPhones does not have the ability to smell yet, at least, right? And then the voice technology that most of us are born with, which is to be able to speak and read and see and all that. But hey, this is all taken for granted, right? And Apple gives you like a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year warranty, and then you have to change that. And then, alhamdulillah, we have been around for, most of us like are living an average life of 60 plus years, but all that is like nothing, right? We eat bananas and we eat our favorite fruits, and it's as if it's nothing, right? So we take it all for granted. First and foremost, not realizing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the designer, the creator of those things. And then secondly, Allah is the one who has given us these things. If He hadn't given us, then we know that we have brothers and sisters and we have humans around the world that are living in really severe conditions, and it's Allah that is making us live in this comfortably, but we most of the time we take it for granted. So knowing that this is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then it's the other aspects of it is that it's free from errors. And I'll give you something else. Now Allah has promised something really, really beautiful in Surah Al-Anbiya. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لقد أنزلنا إليكم كتابا فيه ذكركم أفلا تعقلون. Indeed, we have sent down to you, upon you, a kitab, a book, in which is your mention. Okay, won't you then understand? Won't you then use reason? Okay, now let's talk about mention, dhikrukum. What does that mean? So the ulama, the scholars have explained that this means that your honor, your success, your nobility. Okay, another way of saying this dhikrukum is, how do we feel if our favorite speaker or big personality or a leader repost or shares or retweets whatever platform you're on any of our posts? Right now, this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, that this is what has your mention. You want me to rise you, you want me to elevate you want me to give you honor, you want me to give you izzah. This is the book. So many different things, but we need to think about what is the value of this book to us. Most of us think, okay, well, Quran is something that we put on the shelves, and I mentioned earlier that for some culture it's something that we put on the head of the bride as she's walking out of the wedding halls. I hope that's not done anymore, but I wouldn't be surprised if it is. So that's how we take Quran most of the time. But it has something that's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed. And another way of also remembering it, which is also tied to what you were talking about earlier of istighfar, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَاذْكُرُونِي أَذْكُرْكُمْ. Right? Remember me, I'll remember you, right? And we actually, and most of us are chasing that. We want that mention, we want that retweet, we want that share or whatever, right? And actually, Instagram actually calls it mention, right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, I will mention you among the honorable angels. So, it's just like, just to think about our priorities. And again, to think about the importance of Quran, so many different things. If you just want to talk about the deals, that it's like one harf is 10 deeds. What other act of ibadah can get you there? So that's basically what it comes down to. And two more other things that I would connect to Quran is to also have respect and awe of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's something that is also we are lacking on today with the whole edutainment culture of everything has to be funny and humorous. Sometimes we say, well, that's fine, you can make it humorous, but you don't have to make the deen humorous, right? So to the point, a very common type of jokes which should be banned, I think, is how we make dua for jokes. Hey, you're using Android, astaghfirullah, right? Where is the honor of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? We are making
I've
dua.
heard multiple
Yeah, this is
I've heard
something.
like multiple things like about like, oh, shaitan, it's something along the lines of shaitan is confused or something along those lines. And
Yes.
it's like how do we think about that shaitan is confused, like, oh, this person is doing this but they're also doing this, like, what? But that's like between them. It would be between them and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ultimately.
Right, right. So yes, I think this just from a perspective of actually taking, having respect of Allah and awe of Allah. That and having that does not mean that you cannot love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But at the same time, I think we are also taking it too far just for that whole edutainment culture. And lastly, it's also to obey the orders of the Quran, or at least take them seriously, right? And a lot of the times, people are, I don't think it's haram anymore. I don't think that's a big deal. I don't think Allah will punish me for it. Well, look, we are not following Bible here, right? If you're following Bible or any other book that you don't have any authentic version of it, then we need to think about it. Dude, you don't have to think about it. That's the whole premise of Islam, that there are answers that are already there. You don't need to think, right? You think when you don't have information. And we wouldn't do that, right? When it comes to investment advice or business advice or tax advice, we don't say, oh, I don't think CRA will penalize me for not paying taxes on this. We actually go and we follow the law. But when it comes to Quran and Sunnah, it's like, I don't think, and we just look at different celebrities and they say whatever they say, and then you kind of go with that. So I know I've talked a lot. Before I go into further tips on that, any other thoughts, any follow-ups, questions, comments from your end?
Yeah, I just feel like when it comes to thinking of like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I feel like we take a lot of, how the things that Allah has given us, like for instance the Quran, people would pick and choose ayahs, and then from there they would derive like their own what they feel is like right, and they won't even look at the entire context for it. So what would you say to that,
Oh,
like
thank you so much
to
for,
people who
yes,
conclude?
beautiful. That's Mel Larivori. That is so important. And I had just like almost forgotten about that. This is really important and very near and dear to my heart. So we have two extremes here actually. So there's type of people who's like, look, you should not open, you should not read the translation, you shouldn't read the tafsir, you should only, go and sit in halaqah, and you shouldn't open the book. But any other book you can open, no problem. But Quran, you shouldn't open. That's one extreme, right? And that is obviously what has also turned people away from Quran. And actually, subhanallah, a lot of the garbage that people say is because people are not aware of what Quran says. That's why a lot of the different sects and different maulanas and different scholars, they say a lot of things which are actually against Quran. And part of the reason is you can say that because people are not reading the Quran directly. And then on the other hand, you have this extreme, which you mentioned, is like, they'll just read one ayah and they'll give a fatwa based on that ayah. So you want to have that middle ground, right? And so what we do is, like in our discussion sessions or tadabbur sessions or what have you, say, look, the goal of these sittings or these discussions is to use it as a reminder of things that you already know, especially if you're not doing it with a teacher or what have you. You're doing it as a family, you're doing it individually, so you want to use it as a reminder. So I'll give you two examples, or maybe one. Let's just do one example. So in Surah Al-Kahf, actually let's take two examples from Surah Al-Kahf, right? So obviously the story of Surah Al-Kahf, the young men, and so you're reading those verses, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the cave and how they took refuge in that cave, and then there was a dog with them, right? Now, something simple, one can take that, look, you know what, be strong, leave the bad company, flee from danger, flee from persecution, ask Allah for help, right? All these things are clearly out there, and they're just reminder. Hopefully everybody knows about those things, but when you do the tadabbur, you think about those things, and so on and so forth. Now someone might say, well, look at these righteous guys, they had a dog, how come I don't have a dog? Right now you're reading into it, right? So if you want to have a question, okay, can I have a dog in my home or not? Khalas, you go to someone who has studied the deen, who has the criteria, who has the knowledge and authority to give you a fatwa on that, and that's it. But when you're doing your self-reflection, you're sitting by yourself and reading Quran, or you're sitting with your family and reading Quran, do and remind yourself of something that you know for sure, right? There's no difference of opinion. You already know these things, and that's it. But if a question comes, you write down that question. You don't become a mufti, just like you wouldn't give tax advice or investment. Actually, subhanAllah, that reminds me. If you, I don't know, I know some of the audience may be into investment and what have you. When you watch YouTube videos on investment, you know what it starts with? This is not an investment advice, because they don't want to be sued. They want to have views, and they want to tell you their opinion, but they don't want to be sued by you thinking that this is investment advice. But when it comes to religious advice, like, this is a legitimate fatwa. So something for us to think about, that where we are falling on that criteria. So this is your point about, let's have that middle ground. And I can share some questions that we suggest to our students. If you don't know how to think about it, then here are some questions that will get you started. Ask yourself, what does this verse tells me about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Which people or which type of people is this verse, this ayah talking about? What qualities is Allah praising or dispraising in this verse? How do I do in terms of those qualities? Is there a promise of Allah in this verse that if you do this, I will do this? Is there a promise? Is there a mindset shift in this verse? So on the topic of Ramadan, which you mentioned earlier, وَأَن تَصُومُوا خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ إِن كُنتُمْ تَعْلَمُونَ. And if you fast, that is better for you if you know. So that's a mindset shift that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is providing you. You might think, hey, you know what, if I fast, I'm not going to do good on my exams. I will be not productive at work. I will miss out on investment opportunities. I will not be great in my presentation, or I wouldn't be playing, sports to the best of my ability. But no, Allah is saying, وَأَن تَصُومُوا خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ إِن كُنتُمْ تَعْلَمُونَ. It's a mindset shift. It's a focus shift, right? Sometime Allah will bring your attention towards the akhirah, and you might be thinking about your exam tomorrow. Allah is saying, yes, that's good, but what about the qabr? What about the akhirah? What about that bigger exam on the day of judgment? So these are some of the things that people can think about as they're doing reflections on Quran.
Right. So I actually had a follow up to that as well too. So sometimes it may happen to us where because of like school or work, or we're trying to do extra ibadat, hopefully, no judgment, but sometimes we end up missing suhoor, or we feel even more tired because we want to make sure that we're getting our recitation and we want to get our memorization in, but now it's like we start to feel like this kind of exhaustion. So how do you keep up with that momentum, like with trying to do reflection, with looking at the translation, and trying to do all of this all at once?
Beautiful. Okay, so actually my next two tips will cover that. So the next tip I actually want to talk about is quality over quantity, right? So someone reading one page, actually, yes. So basically focusing more on quality over quantity. And that is caveat here. Again, we don't want to be on extremes. Caveat, this is beyond the faraid. The fard, you have to pray even if you don't feel like it, even if the quality is going to drop, you have to do that bare minimum, right? There's no question about it. Now we are talking about the extra stuff. So in that, one of the suggestions I have is to make it time bound. Instead of making it page bound, that I have to do 10 pages, make it time bound. That, look, this is my half an hour for tarawih or qiyam on the weeknights, and this is my, for weekends or for holiday nights or what have you, right? 1 hour or 2 hours, whatever it is. So make it time bound, and then do the best quality that you can do within that time. But that time is for Quran, that time is for qiyam, that time is for dua and what have you. So that, and again, I'm not saying it's something Islamic or fatwa, what have you, just from a personal development or habit perspective, you can make it time bound, that I'm going to do it in that time. Now, whether I do 2 pages or 1 page or 1 ayah or 10 pages, doesn't matter. I'll give it my best quality. That means that, distractions are shut down. I'm in like airplane mode or whatever you need to do. Or maybe my phone is away, I'm just with the book or what have you. But that's one example to make it time bound, right? And also, like, another thing is to make your environment easy, right? So the way to make your environment easy is if you are able to take time off from work and things like that. I know many people plan their vacations around it and whatnot. So if you're able to do that, obviously do that. Something connected to what you were saying is do not stress out and compete wisely. So sometimes what can happen is you may have a sister or mother or brother or friend, and they're like, mashallah, 10x better than you, right? So now you'll be like, okay, well, I can't catch up, there's no way I can catch up, so I might just like quit, right? So you want to maybe use them for inspiration, but you want to maybe compete with yourself or people like you, so you have a real chance at the game, right? Because if you're feeling burnt out, if you're feeling stressed out, that's not a good environment to be in. If you're feeling too relaxed, that's not good either. And each person knows himself or herself better. So let's plan it out. Let's be wise about it, and let's not stress out. Something related to it as well is that, look, let's say if you don't have school, you have time, right? So let's say you have 4 hours at night, but you know that I cannot do 4 hours of Quran, right? I will get tired, or I will get bored, or what have you. So maybe you start with half an hour, you start with 45 minutes, you start with 1 hour, and for the rest of the 3 hours, instead of Netflixing or just going through your social media, what have you, maybe pick a different activity that you might like more. Maybe sign up for Islamic course, pick Islamic book, read the Sirah, go through a Sirah course, do something different that is also rewarding. Maybe it's not Qiyam, maybe it's not Quran, but it's still rewarding. Maybe if nothing, then maybe volunteer at the masjid and what have you. So pick different type of activities. And then obviously you can slowly increase your Quran and what have you as days go by. So that would be another thing, inshallah.
I actually want to make a quick comment on that as well too. I feel like what often happens to us, though, when we look at people who are achieving a lot more, especially with Ramadan, and they're finishing like the Quran like two, three, four times. It's like before we even start, we just want to quit
Mhm.
because we're like, wow, like we can't even get to that level. We can't even like some of us may even be struggling with just reciting like a few ayahs. So it's like, what is the point?
Exactly,
It
yes.
just happens sometimes. It's like, what is the point of reciting if I can't even do it, like get even through like a page or like the entire juz within one day?
Yes.
So how do you like?
So I think there's three things to it, right? One is that you first of all realize that, look, this is the wrong thinking, right? Change the people that you're competing with. Okay, then also realize something else, that, look, it's a marathon. It's not like it's not a race, it's a marathon, right? So which means it's like, ending is what matters. And then also, as we said, that, look, two people can be praying side by side, right? And the difference between the reward and the quality of their prayer is between the east and the west. So you cannot judge just by quantity, right? So you don't know what is the sincerity, what is the element of it. So focusing on that sincerity, on that quality, maybe your 2 rakats or your 1 page is 700 times heavier than somebody else. And again, we're not here to measure, but I'm saying, who is to say, right? So you're then focusing on your quality, you're focusing on yourself, you're focusing on becoming a better version of yourself. And which is also related to what I had in terms of, another tip I have is protect and then grow. So, for example, if you're not protecting the good deeds that you're doing, either you're showing off, or you are falling into self admiration, or what's called ujub in Arabic, then you may be destroying it. Or you're looking down upon someone else, like, look at this person, he's just praying 2 rak'ah. You have destroyed your ibadah. So it's really important to actually protect what you have and focus on that. And it can be actually important from a perspective of, looking at other people, that, look, they are doing so much. If you use it in the right way, you will be humble. You wouldn't stop thinking, oh, I'm doing so much, because then you're like, oh, this is nothing compared to that other person. So you want to use that high ambition, that noble goals, but in the right way. But as you said, if it's putting you down, then what's the point? Why are you doing it? Are you doing it for your ego, that I'm the strongest, fastest person in the world, or in the city, or in the masjid? Or are you doing it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Right? And then another thing also related to it is that uh, the reward is also tied to intention, the state of the heart, and the effort. So it may take more effort for you or for me to do something. It may be very easy for someone else, right? So let's also remember that.
For sure. I actually had another question as to that. So for some people who are new to Islam, who are new to Islam, um, this is going to be like their first Ramadan. What advice would you give them when it comes to connecting with the Quran? Like, how should they go about connecting with it? Like, should they go to like the masjid? Should they, just pick it up and then just go over the tafsir, and then like how should they go about it? Because what can happen is they might read something and it's like, oh, it doesn't make sense, and then they can go back to not following Islam. And like, how do you like
Sure. Yeah. So
go
there's
about that?
many different angles when it comes to someone who is new, and it can be like a fresh, actual new Muslim. It can also be people who are coming closer to the Deen and just wanting to connect to the masjid. So I think even before we talk about them, something for us is, people who are, used to going to the masjid. If you see new faces, try to welcome them, right? Build a rapport. Don't correct them. And that's another thing. Like, sometimes you may see a new face, a new sister not wearing hijab properly, or brother with shorts, or, tattoos or earrings or necklace, what have you. Obviously, welcome them. Realize that the person looks new. Say, hey, look new. How is everything? Just welcome them. And then, if you have a team that's focused on new Muslims or renewed Muslim, connect them with them so they can gradually teach them. Don't jump into correcting. So we think, oh, if I correct this person, I'm going to have this huge reward, right? But then we are jumping, because we don't have full knowledge. Well, the principle is that your advice, your amal bil ma'ruf wa nahi anil munkar, should bring in a higher benefit and should reduce the harm. So if you do that and the person feels embarrassed that I'm being judged and he or she doesn't come to the masjid, then you will and can actually be punished for that, and you can actually earn the ithm for that, the sins for that. So be really careful. Don't just jump into correcting that, oh, I'm doing this thing, I'm going to get ajr for that. No, you have to do it with hikmah. So that's for us. Now, as for anybody else, whether it be a new Muslim or a renewed Muslim or what have you, so there are a few things, right? So same thing, some of the tips what I mentioned earlier about knowledge, mindset, all goes hand in hand. Especially, I would say that, look, content is very important, right? So if you are surrounded 99% of the time by people who don't care about Allah, who don't care about the religion, it's going to have negative impact on you. So surround yourself with believers, with people who care, and also surround yourself with content that is beneficial. So if all the content is about like money, investments, women, cars, gym, whatever, that's what you'll be thinking about. Surround yourself with content that's talking about the deen, the akhirah, Allah, who is Allah, the kitab, and so on and so forth. And again, start with something that's easy with you. Remember, that, look, even if you, and same thing, sometimes people say, oh, Muslims are fasting, they're praying Taraweeh, I cannot do all this, so they quit. So one of the most common mistake or obstacle I've seen with renewed Muslims or new Muslims is the desire to be perfect, right? So you wake up and you realize that, look, I messed up my fajr. So then what they do is they write off the rest of the day, right? And athletes don't do that, right? If you're an athlete, they also make mistakes, what have you. But the question is, how do I catch up? How do I bounce back? How do I rebound? So you missed one salah, or you broke your fast, you couldn't keep your fast. Catch up on the rest of the things, right? And this goes with the people of the dunya. They understand this thing. Like, if you're an investor, like, Warren Buffett or what have you, that doesn't mean that they're not having these losses in investment. It doesn't mean that they don't make mistakes. It's just that they are right more than the amount of time that they're wrong. So you miss one thing, catch up on the rest of the prayers. So we always say that, look, Allah has made 5 prayers obligatory on you. We cannot change that, but 1 is better than 0, and 2 is better than 1, and 3 is better than 2. So if you miss on that, let's build that momentum and do your 4, do your 3, what have you. Even if you are struggling to fast, do your salah, do your qiyam, do your Quran, what have you, right? So do what you can. Just don't be someone that, okay, I'm going to be a 0-1 binary thing. If either I'm going to be perfect or I'll just quit, right? I think that's one of the biggest obstacle. And when it comes to knowledge, right, that was your primary question, and I took a lot of tangent. Hopefully, it was useful. When it comes to knowledge, I think people should have like one reputable source, right? So let's say if someone is connected to you, then you become their source, and if they trust you, because otherwise they can get really confused, right? So if there's a question, you go to them, and obviously now it's incumbent on you or anybody else who is serving that role that if you don't know, ask, find out from someone, and so on and so forth. But people should have this thing that, look, because a lot of time, people just go and Google, and I have a lot of people, they're like, is this authentic? Is this true? I'm like, bro, we can do that, but that is very ineffective. If you are going to be grabbing data from all the sources on internet, and I'm going to be yes and no, that's just going to take a lot of time. Instead of that, why don't you use a structured material? Don't be a YouTuber, right? That, okay, anything that you see on YouTube, I'm going to start listening to it, and I'm learning my deen from social media feed. It has value to surround yourself with that content, but subscribe to authentic channels. Ask the person that you trust, and then subscribe to those channels. And now we have a lot of apps by different organizations, like Yaqeen has one app, One Path Network has one app. So you don't even have to go on YouTube. because YouTube is going to, obviously YouTube's goal is for you to be on YouTube, so it's going to show you all the other stuff and keep you there. But if you have an app, then you have a more controlled environment. You have New Muslim Academy, you have courses like that are more structured, faith essentials, what have you. Al Huda has a lot of courses. So figure out a course that works for you and stick to it so that you can gradually increase in knowledge. If you have a question, you write down, you talk to people, obviously. And lastly, and most importantly, is to not give up on dua. So you feel something is hard for you, make sure you're asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make it easy for you. That's the easiest thing that we should definitely do.
All right, awesome. So although we are almost out of time, but we also just started late, alhamdulillah. So
let me
just
run
two
through
more points.
3 quick tips, inshallah, if you don't mind. So that will be
Yes, go for it.
Okay. So lastly, ending is what matters, right? So you don't want to be someone who starts Ramadan strong, and then the last 10 nights, which are the best, is your shopping nights, right? Then you're just thinking about the celebration and the henna and this and that, and then boom, you just like wasted the most important thing, right? And vice versa, right? Maybe you had a weak Ramadan start. Let's not give up and let's take advantage of the ending. And the second last tip is actually to establish some private routines as well. So yes, public work is really important. It gives you that motivation. You have this energy and so on and so forth. But have some time for private worship, even if it's like 2 rakats, even if it's 5 minutes of private worship. Be okay to do things by yourself, privately in your room or what have you, between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And lastly, when it comes on the day of Eid, celebration without transgression. So you don't want to be transgressing and committing sins left, right, and center because under the disguise of celebration, and you just like miss out and wipe out all or a majority of what you did in Ramadan. And the last point I would say that this is also a month of giving. So we should also give, but we should also give smartly, right? So think about how can you give smartly. From 2 quick tips are like, take tax advantages. Don't leave the money on the table for CRA. I just did a quick look at that. In 2021, we left around $6.5 million for CRA because we didn't take the receipts. We didn't, claim the taxes, and that's just looking at the 6 charities. There's a lot of work that happens behind the scene. So let's be also smart about it. There's a lot of systems that are against us, the interest system, the leverage system, but things that are in support of us, like tax credits and what have you. Let's take advantage of that. And let's also be smart and wise about the charities that you donate to. Do your due diligence, right? If there's an influencer or a speaker talking about it, that does not necessarily mean that they have done the financial due diligence. Be open to asking questions about impact, about different ratios of admin fees and fundraising. Just to give you a quick number, it was like $13.5 million spent on fundraising, right? I don't know what's the purpose of that. Like, are we growing the sadaqah and the zakah pool from the Muslim? Is it the same pool and the charities are trying to have a bigger slice of the pie? Allahu alam. But again, these are important things for Muslims to think about and not be naive about those things. Back to you.
All right, awesome. Jazakallah khairan. So before we end off, I would like to ask you, like, what is your favorite ayah or saying from the Quran or Sunnah that at this moment that you can think about and it's like meaning behind it? I'm putting you on the spot right now.
Yeah, so I think it's just it matters on, like, again, based on what. So right now is what we were talking about earlier, right? لَقَدْ أَنزَلْنَا إِلَيْكُمْ كِتَابًا فِيهِ ذِكْرُكُمْ, right? I think that's really powerful that Allah is saying that this book is for you and for your honor, and most of us are chasing that in one way or the other, right? But then what portion of that is going to Quran if we really want that honor, that might, that izzah, that elevation?
All right, awesome. Jazakallah khairan. And one last thing, any last remarks you'd like to share with our viewers?
No, I think we have talked about a lot. So it's something, that's good to think about and to take seriously. It is a big opportunity. We hope, we are taking it for granted as well, that, we hope that we actually make it and survive it and, take advantage of it. And we should, right? It's like, we should be definitely taking advantage of that, and may Allah make us from those who will.
Jazakallah khairan, Brother Zubair. All right, and now, inshallah, we'll see you again. Inshallah, somewhere. Inshallah. سبحانك وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. جزاك الله خير.